Welcome all. What is this, the 11th?
10th. 10th. Had to look.
It's actually August 10th, but the session number 11.
The 11th, session 11, yeah.
Oh.
Welcome, everyone.
So these are the things we decided on last time.
Yes.
Did we decide on someone who's doing the weekly update?
No, we did not. Hopefully, I mean, any one of us at that point could step forward if they want to talk about their garden a little bit and what's doing well now and what's not.
All right. Well, the first question is this. So a couple weeks ago, I think I got a text message. I wonder if someone was having difficulty joining the session. A couple weeks ago, the presentation was on berries, and they talked about wine berries, and I really enjoyed picking wine berries and eating the wine berries that are just growing here. And they mentioned we were supposed to like chop them down at some point. When do you chop those stickers down? When are you supposed to chop them? When should you cut them down? Is it the sort of thing you sort of let them grow through the fall and then?
I don't know, but I would think so. I would think, you know, that after they've gotten some more energy from, you know, developing leaves and growing a little bit, I would think that you would chop them down in the fall.
Yeah, I would say the late fall. Again, that's when I usually cut a lot of my berries down. I'm not officially, I don't want to give any wrong information, but I think, you know, when they stop bearing and everything looks like it's getting cold, and cut them back. Bill, do you have an idea on berries?
Who did you ask?
Just came. I don't know.
Oh, sorry. I got you right away. I didn't give you any time to settle.
So I guess the same would be like true for raspberries. At what point in the season are you cut back raspberry canes? At what point would you do that? What time of the year?
Depends on what kind of raspberries they are, whether they're ever bearing or whether they bear once.
There's also summer bearing and fall bearing.
Yeah.
Raspberries, so it's complicated.
Okay.
We had.
I guess it varies.
Yeah, so it varies. We had summer berries, and now we're getting another batch coming right now, a big batch, and we might even get some more fall berries, raspberries. So we're not going to cut them down until they're done.
Well, you can't stop these. They're really too thick. They're really too crazy. They're about 6 feet tall. They're just going rampant. So as far as I'm concerned, you could probably cut them all down to the ground in the fall and they'd come right back in the spring. So okay. Supposedly you're supposed to leave a few canes, 2 or 3 canes on each plant. Ours are so dense, I can't even tell which plant is which. So I really have to thin them out.
Okay.
So when you do cut them back in the fall, and then they come back in the spring, are they growing like a foot a month? Like, are they just take off from there?
Yeah, they grow fast.
I think it's a lot more than a foot a month. It might be about 5 feet a month.
You can watch them if you'd like, watch them grow.
Right, so they used to say in winter, or I guess, or early spring would be the typical time.
Yeah, we did them in early spring. We cut them into clumps that were about, I don't know, 2 or 3 feet apart, and they went across the bed, and we tied them up. We did everything that we read that we should do, and right now it's like a jungle. So yeah. I guess we didn't do it right or something.
And plenty of berries. And plenty of berries.
Well, we got quite a bit before, and now it looks like, unless the birds get them all.
I think considering how big the bed is and how many branches there are, I would like to see more berries. So that was my feeling about it. So.
Okay, let's try the next question here. And Nicole raised this question. Nicole, why don't you take the floor?
Sure. Black beans. It's my first time growing them. I've been having a little trouble keeping them watered in the containers that they're in. So a lot of the leaves are yellow on the plants right now, but the pods definitely are starting to dry up, and the inside, the beans are black. But other than that, I'm sure I can do research and find it out, but I figured I'd ask our community, right? How, when, what do we know about preserving black beans?
I would say this is a lot like my Jacob's cattle beans that I like to grow. They're very low maintenance. They fix nitrogen in the soil, and then hopefully at the end of the year you've got a crop that you can sort of. When ideally all of the beans would sort of reach that sort of tan color that you see on your thing, on your bean. I'm pointing over at the picture. You can't see it anymore. all of the beans would have that sort of color. And then you could cut the whole plant and hang the plant to dry.
Okay.
What I'm finding is happening on my Jacob's cattle this year is that some of the beans are finished, and maybe the beans are planted too close together, and so they're like tipping over and touching the ground, and there's a real issue with them getting like the pod getting like moldy, and so it's less work if you can just go cut the whole plant, hang the whole plant up for a couple of weeks, and then come back and take all the dry pods, and then while you're hanging out, having conversation or shell them. Yeah.
Okay.
What I've done is I've gone around and see, oh wow, this one, it looks like there's a bunch of beans that are like sitting on the ground, so and they're tan already, while there's still sort of greenish ones on the plant. So I'm cutting them off individually and setting them on a rack to dry.
Do you think I could put them in a dehydrator?
I don't think that's necessary.
It'll just dry out.
The beans mature. Once that outer pod is like that dried, then your dry bean is ready to harvest.
And when you cut the plant off and hang it, so I've done that before, like with my small peppers in the past, and I trim back all the greens. Or do you cut off all of the green, like the foliage, or you leave that just with the plant upside down?
Yeah, I've always left the foliage, but you see, it's like going yellow. It's not like it's a functioning plant anymore. It's doing that exchange of.
Is the yellow something that happens when the beans are ready, or was that just because like my soil's either lacking in something or they're not getting enough water? Or is that just the cycle of its life?
As the beans mature, the leaves go yellow, and the plant reaches the end of its life, and then the beans are mature.
Okay. All right. Now I don't feel like such a bad plant mom.
No. Just like when you buy the hard beans in the store, that's how those are mature beans. So that's all. That's what happens. They dry out and then they just pop out. So you're not a bad mommy. They naturally mature, and then you have beans. I mean, it takes a lot of beans to make. Then you see how much, when you really need to get enough beans for a meal or two is a lot of, you realize how many beans you need to grow to really make it.
To see that from the 4 plants, I was like, oh, I'm gonna have so many beans to harvest. I do not have so many beans to harvest.
Right. Even if you pick everything out, it's like a bowl and you're done. You cook once and you're done.
Yep.
So unless you really, that's why I stopped growing them at some point. I realized unless I really commit, and then they tend to take over and kind of strangle other stuff, that it wasn't really worth it. Even though they are beautiful and they're trellising, I didn't, I guess, have enough space to dedicate to making it worthwhile for me.
Right.
So nobody submitted any other questions. So we're going for questions from the floor now. What questions do we have?
Has anybody dealt with bad raccoons this year? We have a bad raccoon. He refuses to be caught. He's in the garden every night. He digs up my garbage that I dump I plant. I have corn in the cage, and he's managed to get the corn out, and I come out in the morning and the cage is all locked up. There's no corn in the cage, nothing.
No raccoon.
No raccoon in the cage too. And he's been eating tomatoes. He's been eating melons.
Oh my God.
It's bad. Bad
record.
you got a real nemesis there.
Yeah, he's doing a lot of damage. So nobody's had that, huh?
No, you have him. You're lucky. He doesn't want to leave you.
No, you're lucky. He doesn't want to leave me.
Yeah, right. No, I just had a lot of squirrels and stuff take all my peaches and apples, but no raccoons.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Did the squirrels eat
Eating
the
strawberries on my deck the other day. Sorry.
Sorry, what'd you say, Mary?
I said, did the squirrels eat the pits? That's what they used to do for our apricots. They wouldn't eat the apricots, but they would rip them apart to eat the pits.
Oh, no, yeah, just like when they were all little, I had the blossoms and the peaches was coming out, and then they just got them, one by one until nothing was left.
Mm.
And, same thing with my apples. They got a lot of my berries. Blueberries I covered, but otherwise, I think I'm going to use row cover next year. I think that's a good idea I think the netting was too tricky for a tree. Maybe, after I see the blossoms, I'm going to get like a row cover and just try to cover as much as I could of the tree. So hopefully that'll protect it, because I think the sun will still get through and they'll already be pollinated. So I'm hoping that will help.
What if you put like a fencing not too far around it where the animals, maybe can't get over it?
No, like my particular setup, I have my neighbor's tree is like, I just have this total walkway for the squirrels. Like there's no way and they're so nimble that they come over from the maple tree, they hop right. I have a little fence, but they hop right over that. And then there's a fence behind me. So they have like all these ways to enter. And it's pretty small. I don't really have enough room to like fence it off specifically. So I think I'm going to prune it this year a lot and then try row cover just so I could hopefully eat some of my peaches.
Yeah, maybe if they don't see it, they won't go after it. But I've used the netting, it's not insect, it's bird netting. And I used to wrap my tree twice. And I tied it and I made it tight. It went over the whole tree. And the next morning, it was all unwrapped and the squirrels had gotten everything.
Yeah, I got the netting and I was attempting, but it was too tall and everything was sticking through the net. It was like I just stopped halfway through. It wasn't even, I knew it wasn't going to work.
And what are we thinking the odds are with actually the raccoon that untied it so the squirrels could get in there?
Impossible.
They're working together.
Who's a natural predator to a raccoon?
Coyotes, maybe. Probably wolves or tigers.
We don't want to invite any of those to the garden. Get rid of the raccoon.
Yeah, maybe you got a little tiger in the backyard.
Raccoons are really, they're pretty ferocious and they're very strong. And
they're very smart.
Yeah. Smart. And very smart and very nimble. They have hands that can slip in and untie things and take things, and they're very, very smart.
And they look cute until they're cornered. Then they get really scary.
Very, very ferocious, right?
Can you, the reason I was asking about predators, do they care about urine, just that smell, that aversion, if you get something strong around the garden where they won't maybe try to come in? Do they care about that?
Oh no, I was out there trying to jury rig some kind of crazy cage for my cantaloupes, and we'll see what happens tomorrow. It'll probably be all torn apart. So, we'll see.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure what works. As I said, the cage, I've caught plenty of raccoons in the past, and I usually just catch them and take them somewhere. Not near Warwick. So
New Jersey.
New Jersey, right.
Jersey, get your own raccoons. I love it.
Crazy. Yep.
I found that I had trouble with woodchucks. I have, continuing. And evidently they don't like mint, and I planted mint around my tomatoes, and they leave it alone now. And I just looked on the internet, and raccoons also don't like peppermint.
Oh, okay.
So you can plant peppermint around, and that might help to keep them away.
Mm-hmm.
And it's important because mint will take over the world. I learned that the hard way.
Yeah, and I just went into my mint patch today to pick some mint, and there were all kinds of bees and hornets and wasps and things. And
Well, you can put a big pot of mint out there, or a couple of pots of it, if you don't want to put them around.
In a garden the size of Bill and Mary's garden, what would a pot of mint do? I mean, they would need like 20 pots or something, or 40 pots, right?
We'd have to spread it around the things we didn't want them to get, but they don't get everything. They just go for certain things. So we might be able to protect 6 melons or something like that, you know?
Yeah, well, I just put the mint next to the tomatoes, and it's fine.
One thing that does work for them, I have an electric fence around my corn, and that does work. But it's limited. It's not a big electric fence. It's covering like a 20-foot long bed around it. And that seems to work. The raccoon has not gotten in there yet.
It says anything in the mint family, peppermint or garlic.
garlic would be good, yeah.
Garlic is a good thing to repel them also, it says. Maybe they're vampires.
Keeps them away too.
Well, I've got a different question, unless we want to say more about raccoons. So, what about row covers? I know Bill has a lot of uses for row covers. Maybe we should have everybody else go first and with their use covers, and then he can list his 20 uses. What do people like to use row covers for?
Does anybody else use them?
This year,
I'm going to start next year. I'm going to definitely start. I realize that with my seeds, when I start my seeds, and hopefully with some of my berries, I'm going to try to protect them a little bit. But I have not used them this year.
This year we did something following what they do with the community garden, and that is we've got a small patch of dedicated Swiss chard, and we've got that covered with something. It actually put it's like hardware fabric or something going over the top, and then it's over that, so it's got like it's a nice shaded area, and it keeps the sun off the Swiss chard, and seems to be doing well. Chaton keeps saying, yeah, but if this were mobile, that would be great. And well, you know, I sort of tacked it into the, it's not going to move very quick. But I'm thinking, oh, we should really, it's a microclimate that you're creating. So go ahead, Bill,
Well, what I do in the spring when it's cold, and in the end of March and April, I use it for a lot of transplants that I put out to raise the temperature and to protect from some light frost, okay? And you can get the fabric in any kind of, there's like 3 types. There's super light that you can use all summer that doesn't make things too hot, but there's a medium and then a very heavy fabric as well. So in the spring, I use the heavier fabrics, and then I switch over for protection from insects with the super light fabric once it gets warm, because I'm not worried about frost anymore. I'm just worried about insects. And the same thing in the fall. You know, if you have crops out there and you can throw this over it for a while, it does keep, you know, if you have a 28-degree frost or something like that, it will keep it from actually freezing. So it does protect the plants. So that's one use. And of course, as an insect barrier, okay? And I use that for a lot of things. Right now I have my fall brassicas out there. They're about, I don't know, 7 or 8 inches tall. And I don't have the fabric anymore. I have shade netting, but shade netting with very fine, fabric, so that the moths can't get in, because there are moths that lay eggs that have worms or caterpillars that just demolish the brassicas. And they're really out there, not so bad in the spring, but this time of the year, if they see a brassica, they go crazy. And we just had some nice kale out there, summer kale. It survived most of the summer, and in 3 days they skeletonized it. So so that's something that it can be used for. And I may at some point switch over to super light fabric instead of the shade netting. I put the shade netting on because I had transplanted them and I wanted to have them be protected from the sun for a little while. And then I'll switch over to the super light stuff, which will keep the insects off, but it won't make it too warm for them. So that's
when you say throw it over, what exactly does that mean?
I have hoops, metal hoops that you can buy. They're just hoops, and they're very thin. They're a little bit, I don't know how thin, but a couple millimeters. They're very thin, and so every 4 or 5 feet, I would have a hoop, and then I would put the netting over the bed, and then I usually use rocks to hold it down because it'll blow off in the wind. So the netting does not touch the plants, and it works. It does keep the insects off, and it does in the fall. It'll keep it a little warmer, but that's not why I use it right now. I'm going to use it for the insects.
We've also used in the spring our peas. We couldn't figure this out, but we would plant a lot of peas, and then often they would start to come up, but they wouldn't come up. They'd be very irregular, and we couldn't figure out what was wrong. And I said, I think something is eating them. And we had no idea what it would be, whether it would be birds or an insect or whatever. And I said, well, let's cover it with row cover. And we did, and that works. It worked much better. So we've had good success with that, with covering the peas in the spring. And then we put them out really early. We got them out early March this year. So that also mitigates if it gets too cold,
And
sorry, go ahead, Nicole.
I'm sorry, thanks, Chad. With the row covers, you do a drip irrigation line underneath or something? What's your watering system?
No, well, I usually mulch it underneath so that it doesn't need a lot of watering. But then when I do water, I just lift up, I push the rocks aside, I lift it up, and I water at the base with a hose.
Okay.
I usually almost do it all by hand. Hopefully not too much because it's mulched.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
And so you seem to have is there a store or you buy online all these different variations of the row cover?
Oh, yeah.
Or?
Almost every garden catalog has it. Johnny's is one that I would recommend. They have a lot of stuff. Johnny's seed catalog, and they're in Vermont, and they have a lot of stuff. But most garden catalogs would sell the different kinds of netting, the super light, the medium, the heavy, and so forth. And it can be used year after year. Sometimes I use it 3 or 4 years before it finally starts to get holes in it and stuff like that. It's not used once. And I also sometimes use in the spring slitted plastic that you can get from certain places. And it's the same size. It goes over the hoops. It has slits in it so it doesn't get too hot. And it doesn't work as well for insects because there's slits in it. The insects can get in, but in the spring, there's usually not that many insects.
And the rain can go through.
And the rain goes through as well. And it keeps it quite a bit warmer. And in the spring, the sun is out. Underneath that plastic, it's a lot warmer, and the plants like it. Of course, as soon as it starts to get hot, I have to take it off because I don't want it to get too hot.
Thank you. But that's important that you have everything in one area, right? Because obviously, if you have a tomato next to a brassica,
that's why I do my planting mostly in beds where it's like things are next to like things. But it could be in small patches. It could be 5 feet or 6 feet or 8 feet or something like that. Sometimes I have a whole bed of one thing, 20, 25 feet of one thing. But with the hoops, they have to be spaced maybe every 3 or 4 feet anyway. So you figure, well, use 3 or 4 hoops, and you've got 8 feet of, you can cover it with 8 feet with that.
Thank you.
I hate to put you guys on the spot there, Bill and Mary, but I'd really like to know about your cold frames as well. And the first time I ever saw them was when you did one of the garden updates, the very beginning ones, and when we first started the Zoom. Did you build them yourself? Do you put anything in the fall over the winter? Like, tell me things, please.
Okay. I use them mostly over the winter, but I plant them in the fall so that the stuff is growing already in there. And it's more like protection of the stuff you're growing rather than growing stuff over the winter, because in the winter, sunshine isn't so great. It's cold. Things don't grow a lot in the winter, but you can preserve them in a cold frame. And so plenty of times I've had a good crop of spinach that will grow a little bit over winter, but then in the spring it really comes fast and you get a lot of early spinach. Same with lettuce, if you use the hardy types of lettuce. I've also tried beets and carrots. Those don't work as well in the winter. They seem to like warmer weather, so those don't work that well. But things that grow fast that can be preserved in the cold frames work reasonably well. I don't do it quite as much as I used to because I have the 18 by 16 foot greenhouse in the garden. And that one really does a lot better than the cold frames. So.
Sure. And when you say that you're planting for the fall, are you planting for the fall like you are right now, or like in the fall are you putting that stuff in?
No, you have to plant it before the fall, because if you wait till October, the sun and the temperatures things aren't going to grow that quickly. And you're going to wind up with a lot of little plants in there. So you try to get it to be full and then extend the harvest over a couple of months. You know, you can harvest it over the winter, for example, December, January. Often things do get destroyed in the little cold frames because we get a huge wind and a lot of snow, and you know, it's like I do a lot better in the greenhouse as opposed to the cold frames.
Thank you for that.
You know, I think it's time for us to do our shimmy in place, and then the weekly updates. We haven't really picked anybody, so while we're doing a shimmy in place, if people want to decide what they want to share about what they're doing that would be great. So let's do it.
Shimmy.
And Auden is leading this part of the session, right?
He abandoned me. I don't know where he went. No, that's not true. He's on the porch. I know exactly where he is. I pickled some cucumbers last night at like midnight. Does anybody else find that they pickle like really late at night? Am I the only person that does that? Like, it's crazy, but spicy tequila pickles at midnight. Olé!
Oh, nice. Did you really put tequila in that?
Yeah. Spicy tequila pickles, it's where it's at. And I actually, it was midnight, so it was late, and I cut them too long. So I had to like make little pieces. So there's spicy tequila pickle bites that we'll be nibbling on. But
I like that idea.
I got 8 of them last night. So, and my big pot's out on the stove for more midnight harvesting.
Well, listen, that's a if you can't sleep, at least do something productive.
So, yeah, it's true.
If you have those pickles, you probably can sleep.
You're right. And I have so many quick pickles in the fridge and stuff right now. It's my cucumbers came in like gangbusters this year. It was, 50, 60 cucumbers to just go through and try to figure out what to do with right now. I might have overplanted.
Nicole, do you have a good recipe for bread and butter pickles, or do you like those?
We usually don't do bread and butter pickles. But I'm not if you have one and you're looking to share.
I have an old Department of Agriculture cookbook, which has great gherkin pickles and bread and butter. Yeah.
I would love to see those recipes if you wouldn't mind sharing.
Sure.
Thank you.
Put it down.
Thank you. And you know what? I'll share this too real quick. So Pier 1 and a lot of these big box stores have been going out of business, and they sell their fixtures. So when I had gone one day, they had this thing. Can you guys see it?
Yeah.
And they call it like it's an impulse bowl thing, but obviously I've been using it for my harvest, and it works so great. I got it for like $30 and I can take it, like, you know, leave it in the basement in the winter, bring it up in the summer and be able to store all my produce and have it out and try to be more manageable with preserving things. So I figured I'd share that.
Very nice. Well, I'm gonna, who wants to report on what they're doing this week?
What are we doing? We're trying to survive, that's all. It's gonna be so hot. Well, we're picking tomatoes. We're trying to catch a raccoon. What else are we picking?
Oh, peppers, lots of peppers.
Lots of
Yeah,
peppers.
lots of peppers.
We're watering because even though we had 4 inches of rain last week, the heat and the runoff, it needs more water. So we're watering some, particularly new things that we planted out that are small. The roots aren't really deep yet, so they need to be watered fairly regularly.
Well, and Bill has been weeding and mulching. That's what he's been doing. So that's.
Yeah, we were busy for about 5 weeks and couldn't do much in the garden. Then we finally looked at the garden and realized the weeds had taken over. So that's been a big thing.
I had heard from somebody, Bill, that like instead of maybe watering daily, that you could water every 3rd day, but that you try to water really heavy so that you're getting so much water into the ground so that the new plants that you planted are like searching. Their roots are going down lower and creating like a better root structure instead of watering daily, like, but more shallow where everything's around them.
That's what we're doing. We do water every few days. It's not every day, but
Yeah.
we have a lot of things, and so we wind up watering some one day and some a different day and so forth. Yeah.
I'm trying to do the fine balance right now to not have the tomatoes crack, right? To try to figure out how to evenly water with Mother Nature so that the skins aren't busting from being too overwatered one day and not another.
That also depends on the variety of tomatoes. Some are more prone to that than others. So.
Yeah, I think the heirlooms are very prone to that, right? Like the misshapen, the cracking, the cat facing.
And of course, Mother Nature bats last.
Mother Nature.
Oh, and sorry, Michael, did you want to do announcements as well, or?
I thought, yeah, usually we do that before the weekly updates, don't we? I'll do that after. Who else wants? Bill and Mary, do you have anything else you wanted to mention as far as what you're doing now?
No, but I mean, there's still time to plant some fall things that don't take too much time. So if people want to do that, they can do that. I still haven't planted like beets, and they'll be fine if you plant them now and keep them mulched and watered. You'll get beets in October.
Oh, you just transplanted more lettuce.
Yeah, I
lettuce.
keep planting and transplanting lettuce because the lettuce goes to seed so quickly in the heat. So every 3 weeks I plant 20 lettuce plants and transplant them in the garden, and then the high temperatures make them go to seed fairly quickly. So we get some lettuce out of it, and then the next batch is ready. So we try to keep a continuous amount of lettuce growing. That's about it.
When you say 20 to 30 plants, how many seeds? Like I'm not struggling. Maybe I'm struggling a little bit with knowing with lettuce, like with their seeds so small, I'm usually just kind of shaking them, where I'm putting them. And I feel like sometimes I have success because, again, I was trying to follow lead with you guys from one of the previous Zooms, and you said you go like every 2-3 weeks, right? You're planting like heavy lettuce to have a succession crop throughout the season. I feel like some weeks it's coming through and I'm good, and then other weeks I'm where'd the lettuce go? What happened to my seeds?
Yeah, I grow them. I start them all in a little tray in the house. Okay. So I just sprinkle some seeds. And you can do that outside too. But I find it so hot in the summer that things dry out so quickly that it's hard to get them to germinate well outside, unless you're always on top of it. And sometimes one day is so hot that it dries them out. So I do it inside, and when they get to be like an inch or so tall, I just transplant them out and cover them. I shade them for a day or two till they get their bearings, and then just mulch them and water them. And a month later, we get more lettuce. So
I'm trying to get one right now. I'm letting it go to seed to see if I can save the seeds on it. So it has to flower, right? And then dry up, and then you can pick them off and sprinkle them out to save them. Am I correct in that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
you
but if
ever-
those are,
I'm sorry,
they,
Mary?
they won't necessarily be true to form if they're if it's a hybrid lettuce. So you don't know what you're going to get. It's like when you get a volunteer tomato, you don't know what it's going to be,
A Frankenstein lettuce.
So if you have heirloom type lettuces, they'll come true. But if you have the F1s type of lettuce, you're not sure what you're going to get. I mean, it might be okay, but it might not.
Right.
Lettuce seed, you get so many lettuce seeds when you get a package of lettuce. I'm not sure it's worth it to save seeds.
Right.
But, yeah.
Thank you.
What about Camila sitting there on mute? I wonder if Camila would want to share what she's been up to lately.
Lots of cucumbers. I could speak for her.
Oh, Camille stepped away for just a minute. We went out for a little boat ride around the lake and got in about 5 to 8. So we had dinner through the meeting. But thank everyone for sharing. Our cucumbers, we had to mention already that I think it was Nicole said that the cucumbers were just a bumper crop this year, and they continue to be a bumper crop. Our cherry tomatoes, this is only the second year we're in the community garden. The cherry tomatoes are coming up phenomenal and spectacular this year. We took out all of our string beans last week, and we put in arugula, which after the heavy rain, all the seeds popped up like crazy.
It popped up within 24 hours.
Yeah.
Of putting them in the ground.
So I'm probably interested in understanding how to thin arugula. I haven't read up on that yet. And also I planted more in a row as opposed to, I'll say, spreading over a 4 or 5 or 6 inch area. But hey, that's what next year is for, is to do better than this year. So
And we just planted pea seeds as well. And they're coming up from all the rain as well.
they're coming up just lovely. We have them all, almost 1.5 inches apart, so to say, as though they were planted exactly like the packet said. So and the last thing that we did, we do jar our tomato sauce. So I don't grow enough tomatoes. The cherry tomatoes wouldn't be enough. So we picked up a few cases of tomatoes, and we made our sauce to start off the year, and what we lovingly call the Feast of the Tomatoes. So
well, Nicole, while you were up pickling last night, we were up making tomato sauce.
we were closing up the last batch of sauce.
It's a midnight process, right? Doesn't it always happen late?
I know. It's a labor of love.
It truly is.
Yeah.
It truly is. That's awesome. I know now. I feel like I'm in good company at night while I'm pickling.
Although I would love to hear more about your pickling recipe. That sounds delicious. And we have a lot of cucumbers. So
Sure, yeah. I'll definitely share it. No problem.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So people have been mentioning recipes. If they want to send them in after the session, we'll try to email them out in the next few days.
Perfect.
Let's see. We just have a couple of announcements. And actually, the number one, I think everyone can tell us all about that. But I'd like if Nicole could give me some details about this second one.
Sure.
We weren't sure whether she could be here tonight, so I wrote a lot on the screen. But I'm going to cancel this and put the spotlight on Nicole.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, no, I wasn't sure if I was going to make it. I'm happy I did because I've missed the last 2. So Fruition Seeds, it's a company in the Finger Lakes, and there's a woman, Petra, who runs it. She is a farmer. Her father taught her lots of stuff. I've shared other stuff with the group where there were free guides, and she constantly gives out loads of free information of ebooks and things. And she had put something out on Instagram asking for just people in the community if they wanted to share their gardens and sit and do a little Q&A. So I'll be doing that Wednesday with her at 5 p.m. live on Instagram, which is pretty cool. So I'll give everybody a tour of my garden live, and then for 15 minutes, and then the last 15 minutes we'll do a Q&A. And I'm excited about it. I'm a big fan of hers. I use her seeds. She was the one that made I was telling Chad and Michael in the beginning of the session, I don't know if you're going to be able to see it, but here, wait, I'll move it. Fruition makes this garden calendar, which I'm really a big fan of. Oh. So it's for 3 years. So you put the date at the top, and then you write down like just what's happening, you know, on all the days. And on some of them, here, let's put you right here for a moment. Welcome to my kitchen. Hold on. There's like, so it's a great resource. So you can write like what's coming in, what you have happening. And then at the very bottom, like she even gives you like tips for the month, what to plant, what not to plant, you know. I feel like I'm doing shameless self-promotion right now. But I think it's an excellent resource. The calendar cost me maybe like $15. Anyway, so that's Wednesday night at 5 o'clock, but it'll also be recorded and on their website. So yeah. And while I all have you, I don't know if you've seen it, there's signs all around, but there's signs everywhere right now for an art show called Words from Warwick. And I'm one of the artists that are going to be participating in that show. I'm actually installing tomorrow morning on the Railroad Green, or the Village Green on Railroad Avenue. And it'll be going on for 2 weeks, and it's an outdoor art installation. There are 8 local artists who are participating. Wickham Works has sponsored the show, and they came together with a concept to just try to bring us all together through words, right, which are so powerful right now, and a lot of what we have. So the 8 artists will be installed between Stanley Demings Park, Lewis Park, and on the Railroad Green. And you can walk around and visit the show for 2 weeks from the 15th to the 29th. So shameless self-promotion there. And
Congratulations, exciting.
Thank you. I'm excited about it. It's my first, I am an artist, a public artist, and installation artist. So this is the first time that I'm going to be showing in town. And I'm excited to kind of introduce myself and my work to everybody. So the work that I'm making for the show, my word that I chose was hope. And I've collected a bunch of materials and things that are all heavily Warwick related with history. And they're going to be placed on the green. And the way that the sun shines through, it's going to be illuminating the word hope onto the ground from the materials that are placed. So it'll be pretty cool. It's my husband. Hi, Andrew.
Hello, world.
Hello, world. He never knows who I'm talking to on the computer. So, but yeah.
Well, we'll look forward to seeing it. It'll be public, so we'll be looking forward to going out and seeing that. Thank you.
No problem.
And that Instagram, do we go to their site, or can we go to you as well, or no? That's by them. Right?
I don't know how it'll be on mine. It'll definitely be through Fruition Seeds.
Fruition Seeds, okay.
Fruition Seeds, yeah. That's it. Thanks for listening.
Hey, Petra is a favored person. Camille makes me listen to her at least 3 nights a week.
She's amazing. She's right.
I love her.
Yeah, I'm so jazzed to meet her. It's like meeting a rock star. I'm pretty excited about it.
Well,
So sorry, she has like a radio show. Like, what do you mean? She's online or a podcast? What does she have?
She posts a lot of videos on Facebook and Instagram.
Oh, okay.
And on her website.
Yeah.
It's great. Great.
Yeah, she's an excellent resource. She's like constantly giving out free information, right, Camille?
Yes. I download her ebooks, everything.
Yeah. She just came out with an ebook with the 4 most problematic tomato diseases.
Yeah, we have it. I have it.
Yeah. Yeah, but she does. She puts out a
Easy.
lot of content and just shares knowledge, which is pretty cool.
Thank you.
By the way, since Andrew just walked through the room and off the screen, I thought I would share a little bit of his handiwork, which Nicole sent these slides in a long time ago when we were talking about trellises, but never got to share them. We don't have that much time, so I'm going to go through them pretty quickly. But these are all trellises that her husband made there in their backyard.
Very nice. Yeah, I saw them at the garden tour. Very nice.
They're so puny in these pictures. I can't believe the tomatoes are like literally 8-9
Little
feet
baby.
tall right now. It's crazy.
Little babies.
Yeah. Oh God, and the peppers. It's so crazy. I wish I had a side by side now. You wouldn't believe it. Well, you guys would believe it because you know the cycle. There's our garden.
Very nice.
Yeah, tune in Wednesday night. You'll see all the progress. Those trellises are completely covered right now in foliage. It's magic. It's really, really cool.
Now, did anyone want to mention anything about organic pest control or any tips or questions or anything? I learned a good tip today about, I was talking to Stacy in the garden center about Japanese beetles, which are attacking my cherry tree. That she says, try to pick them off. Obviously, check as much as you could. They like to be out, at dusk. Sometimes is a good time to check. Then spray. You could spray with soapy water. But then she said the key thing is to put, and I can't say this word right, diatomaceous earth.
Diatomaceous earth.
Yes, I'll never say that word correctly. At some point, maybe at the end of the season, try to do it a few dry days to really put that around the area. Because they really, the problem with the beetles is they'll reproduce a lot over the year. So if you could kind of get that, that you have to think of the soil around there. So if you could put that in the earth, that could really help limit their growth next year. Because I was going to buy a trap, and she said that calls like Japanese beetles from everywhere. It's like a pheromone, and it even though it does trap them, it also kind of calls them over. So it's like a win-lose situation. So I'm going to try the earth thing, and I'll just say D-earth. I'll try to get that name down.
Well, they call it DE too, diatomaceous earth. DE.
There you go. So yeah, she said that could be a really good tool against a lot of predatory insects and critters. I don't know about raccoons, but I'll look into that.
It is. So I've heard that as well, and I've had a similar conversation with Stacy, Chad. The only downfall to all of that is whenever it rains or there's ever any moisture, everything needs to be reapplied.
Oh, yeah, that's problematic. I think she said try to do it. Might settle it if you put in a day wave a few dry days in a row, but I don't know. I guess over the winter that'd be challenging, but right. I'll do what I could do.
The other thing about
my potatoes. Sorry.
Yeah, the other thing about DE is that you should be careful that you don't breathe any in, because it's made of very sharp materials. You don't want to get it in your lungs. So just be careful with that.
Thank you. Any other tips, Bill, that you know about kind of fighting off Japanese beetles or any aphids or anything like this?
I find that there's a couple plants they really love. They love roses. They like asparagus. They like corn,
blueberries.
And so every morning and every evening I'd make a couple-minute trip and I just pick them off and get rid of them. And that has worked this year. I mean, I still have a couple that come on the roses, but I never had more than 5 or 10 per day in the garden. And by getting them every day, I think I'm preventing them, or twice a day, they're not having a chance to reproduce and go into the soil and lay eggs and stuff like that. So each year I seem to get less and less of them. Now, if you have a big cherry tree, that may be a different thing, because it's hard to, if it's tall, how do you pick them off? Yeah,
no, it's still small. It's growing, but they seem to really do a lot of damage quickly. I mean, I come out, they're chewing up the tree. I hope my cherry tree makes it. They really seem to like it.
Yeah.
But I won't give up.
Oh, one other thing to mention, I don't know if anybody's had a problem with these, but the big green caterpillars on your tomatoes, which really can do a job on the tomatoes, we usually leave those on there because they will get a parasite you'll see on their backs, they'll have these little white things.
It's from a parasitic wasp that lays the egg cases on the caterpillar. They hatch out and they eat the caterpillar and they produce more parasitic wasps. And so if you see one of those caterpillars and you see these funny looking, they're pretty long, they're almost a 1/4 inch deep egg cases, white egg cases right next to each other, leave it, okay? Because that's the wasp doing their job.
Yeah.
So those are tomato hornworms that you're talking about, right?
Real hornworms, right?
So I picked them off in the beginning of the season because they will decimate a plant. Like an adult, in a day, a couple of days, your whole tomato plant could be gone. Once they start getting the wasp, I leave them.
Yep.
But we go, and I really, like Michael, I don't like being a killer. I have a really hard time killing things. But when it comes to tomato hornworms, like we hunt for them at night with a black light, because that's the best way to see them. If you put a black light on them at night, they illuminate, because you know they just fade into the leaves. It's so hard to
they're very hard to see.
We give them to the chickens. So I feel like it's more of a cycle of life. We just help with the hunting process.
Circle of life.
But yeah, once they have the wasps on them, I leave them. But before that, they are fair game as chicken food.
Let's see, isn't it Rodale's Encyclopedia of Organic Gardening? They say that for as far as pests, if they take like 10% of your crop, well, that should be like acceptable. They're not in favor of trying to kill every insect that's out there. A little bit getting eaten should be, it's not the end of the world.
Our insects don't understand that.
They're greedy.
They're very greedy.
They read a different book.
Yeah.
I think it's reversed, 90% for them and 10% for you if you're lucky.
Does anybody else have, like, I throw sacrificial food. Like, if I'm picking tomatoes and I have some pests or damage or stuff, I just kind of throw it. And I know that I'm gearing towards volunteers and stuff, but, like, I saw a squirrel running through my yard the other day holding a tomato, and I'm like, that better be the sacrificial tomato. That better not be a good one. But it seems to work. I don't even want to spit in the wind on that one, but I think it works, my sacrificial crops that I throw.
There you go. That could be an effective technique.
Don't come in here. Like, that's for you. This is for us. But I also heard a really great quote the other day that, like, if you're not growing food that insects and animals want to eat, then you're doing something wrong, right? Like, it should be attractive for nature to want to put back into itself. So we're doing something right? If we're trying to fight everything off.
There you go. All right, well, look, it's like that time. Any last questions or comments? And Michael, do you want to ask the crowd how they feel about stuff, or we'll?
Let's put that off to next time.
Okay.
For a topic for next time, what if we discussed favorite tools? Do you have like a garden tool or two that you think, oh yeah, this is something, every gardener should have this? If you've got something like that, could you ideally send a picture or otherwise send some sort of report for it? And today is August 10th, so 2 weeks from today will be August 24th.
Wow.
And maybe take some pictures of the pickles and sauces and all the stuff like that. That'd be interesting to see all the food we're creating.
Right.
All right. Thank you all very much.
Oh, I have one other question.
Sorry.
Is there anyone here who has a lot of experience composting who wouldn't mind talking to sort of a novice about the ins and outs of composting?
It's not our thing.
I'm too new.
Okay.
Yeah, I do it, but I'm not an expert.
Okay. Very good.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
See everybody.
Happy gardening. Stay cool.
Right?
Be well. Bye.
Happy Wednesday, Nicole.
Yeah.
So long, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.